Morena, before we start today's proceedings, I'd like to invite for Petera, who will open us with karakia.
Thank you, Your Worship. Tēnā tātou. Another day in what seems to feel like the longest week in recent memory. On Monday, we had a nice karakia with all our staff, and there were lots of tears shed, and I suspect there's a lot more to come. And it reminds me of a saying that goes, tears are the words the heart cannot express. And so in saying that, our karakia today isn't just for our kaupapa, isn't just for us, but it is for our staff, it's for our community, and it's for the whānau of our chief. Nō reira. E kui mā, e koro mai te pō, tahuri mai rā ki te āwhina, ki te tautoko i a mātou. Ho mai te mauri o a koutou mahi, mā mātou e kawe mo te wā poto, ka whako kia tuai kia koutou, tūturu e rangi whakamaua kia tīnā, tīnā, haumi e hui e tākia, Your Worship. Te whakapono, me te rangi mari e tātou tātou e te aroha, te whakapono, me te rangi mari e tātou tātou e. Tēnā tātou.
Before we begin today's council mahi, I want to acknowledge our Chief Executive, Tosavali Nigel Bickle, who passed away unexpectedly this weekend. Our aroha and deepest sympathies are with his wife Erica, his children in Mokopuna, and his wider whānau. Their loss is profound, and our thoughts remain firmly with them. Nigel was an enormous presence. He had enormous energy, an enormous heart, and his death has left an enormous hole here in our council and across Heretaunga Hastings. For our staff, this is not just the loss of a chief executive. It is the loss of someone who knew them, who believed in them, and made time for them. Nigel knew so many of our staff by name. He was famous for his birthday emails and for the unexpected text or phone call just to check in at all hours of the night. And he had an extraordinary grasp of the work happening across this organisation, not just the major projects, but the detail and why it mattered to the people we serve. Since the news became public, we have received hundreds of messages from across our community, the entire country, and from local government and central government. People have used different words, but they keep describing the same Nigel we all knew. A man with a huge heart and a big vision, who could see the wider picture without ever losing sight of the person in front of him. He would challenge you, he would back you, and usually find a way to make you laugh along the way. Nigel has never waited for permission to build a relationship or become part of community. He was as comfortable beside a hangi pit, rocking his jandals and singlet, as he was at the head of this council table. You would find him wherever people were, often in places his job description didn't require him to be. He went because he genuinely wanted to know people. And once Nigel knew people, he usually found a way to help get something moving along. There was always a deal to be struck. Nigel did not serve his community from a distance. He became part of it. And I think that's why so many of the messages we have received feel so deeply personal. They are not simply tributes to a respected chief executive. They're messages from people who truly feel like they've lost a friend. On Monday, our staff came together for karakia and to mourn. And at this gathering, his amazing EA and work wife, Annie, who I acknowledge here in chamber today, said that Nigel spoke with you. And when he did, he made you feel as if you two shared an intensely special connection. So much so that since his passing, we've discovered he has roughly 300 best friends. That was one of his greatest gifts. He made people feel that they mattered. And today, we feel deeply his absence at this table. You will see the chair traditionally held by our chief executive is empty today. That's deliberate. For this meeting, that chair remains Nigel's. Kua hinga he totora, e te wānui a Tāne. A tautora has fallen in the great forest of Tāne. Bruce Allen has agreed to be our acting chief executive. And Bruce, I am deeply grateful for you stepping in with your calm professionalism at this time, especially over the last few days. As someone who's worked closely with Nigel for a very long time, I invite you to say some words.
Thank you, Your Worship. Nigel understood that public service at its heart is about people, and that was also how he led. In his 7.5 years here at Council, he absolutely put people at the centre of what he helped lead and deliver. And deliver, he did. When Nigel started at Council, housing was one of Council's most urgent priorities. Hundreds of people were living in emergency motel accommodation, and elected members had made it clear that Council needed to be part of the solution. As Chief Executive, Nigel helped bring iwi, mana whenua, central and local government, community organisations together around a response that shaped local needs. That ability to connect people, build trust, and keep everyone focused on the outcome was one of the great strengths of his leadership. By the end of his first year in 2019, Hastings had become the country's first pilot for a place-based housing approach. 4 years later, the number of people needing emergency housing had fallen from many hundreds to fewer than 60. Nigel brought urgency, relationships, and absolute determination to that work. He understood how government operated, knew who needed to be involved, and had a way of giving people the confidence that progress was possible. He brought the same approach to economic development. Nigel wanted Hastings to build on its strengths, create more skilled jobs, and retain more of the value generated by our primary industries in Hawke's Bay. He saw where Council could bring industry, business, and government together. He backed people with good ideas, encouraged them to be ambitious, and supported partnerships and initiatives that created opportunities for Hastings and Hawke's Bay. He also recognised the economic and social value of tourism and events. He strongly supported the funding and infrastructure needed to attract visitors, support local businesses and jobs, bring people into our city, and give our community something to enjoy. Hastings is a much better place because of it. Partnership was central to Nigel's leadership. He understood council had an important role to play in bringing people together and helping make things happen, and he approached that role with energy, openness, and a genuine interest in people. His support for Māori development reflected this. The Hastings Housing Response placed iwi, mana whenua, papakāinga and Māori-led solutions at the centre of this work. Nigel strongly supported Council's Te Reo Māori policy and was one of the first people to help make the world first Māori language and cultural festival Toitū Te Reo possible through partnership with Ngāti Kahungunu and Kauaka. Nigel's deep connection with Samoa and the wider Pacific supported Council's relationships with Pacifica communities and the RSE workers who make a significant contribution to our horticulture, viticulture and food processing industries. During his time with us, Nigel led Council through difficult years. COVID-19 pandemic, Cyclone Gabriel and its long recovery, and sustained economic pressures. He worked tirelessly with the Mayor and elected members, mana whenua, government agencies, neighbouring councils, community leaders and council staff on cyclone response and recovery, which continues today. He could work through complex issues with ministers and senior officials and then roll up his sleeves, show off his tats, and get out into our affected communities. That mix of seriousness, humanity and practicality made him someone people wanted to work alongside. Nigel was a visible, energetic and action-focused leader. He trusted people to do their jobs, backed good ideas and expected people to deliver. He was direct, but people knew where they stood. He could challenge an argument without making it personal, and his warmth, humour and generosity made working with him something many of us genuinely enjoyed. Speaking personally, it has been a real privilege and pleasure to work with Nigel, or Nige. He brought pace, sometimes we couldn't keep up, and he brought purpose. But also good humour, kindness, and a sense of perspective. In demanding moments, he helped people stay focused on what mattered, and in ordinary moments, he made the work feel worthwhile. He always made that work feel worthwhile. He will be deeply missed, not only for what he achieved, but for who he was as a colleague, a leader, a mentor, and a friend. Nige, you're all of that to many of us. Herotanga Hastings is a better place for the 7.5 years Tuasa Valley Nigel Bickle gave us. Kia ora.
I'd like to take a moment to speak guided by the council. Does anyone need a moment? Because we can have a short adjournment if you do. Otherwise, we will carry on with pace, as the chief always said. Okay, team, we're going to keep going then. First of all, apologies and requests for leave of absence. I have received an apology from Councillor O'Keefe. Are there any other apologies or leave of absence? Councillor Nixon.
Yes, leave of absence, please. 15 to 22 of August. I can change it if the schedule changes, but
Thank you, Councillor. We'll note that. Councillor Daniel.
Thank you, Your Worship. A leave of absence for the 28th of September to the 2nd of October.
Thank you, Councillor. If there are no other requests for leave of absence, I'll move from the chair. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Ratcliffe. I will put that. All those in favour? Any against? Thank you, that's carried. I'd just like to remind elected members as we move through the papers today, if there are any conflicts of interest, please declare them at the time of the paper. A reminder as well that, as always, our council meeting is being live streamed today, and we have joining us remotely today Mr. Wayne Eagleson. Wayne, thank you for joining us. And a reminder for those who may be tuning in from home as well, you will see devices in front of elected members. These are so they can access their papers. Okay, team, we'll move into item 4, which is the confirmation of minutes. These minutes are for the meeting held Thursday the 25th of June. Are there any questions, or can I have a mover? Councillor Ratcliffe.
Thank you, Your Worship. There's an error on item 11. It seems that we received the report titled Error, No Document Variable Supplied.
Thank you, Councillor. We will amend that in the minutes. I appreciate that.
Notwithstanding that, happy to move.
Thank you. I will take you as the mover. Deputy Mayor Fowler is the seconder. If there's no other comments or questions, I'll put that. All those in favour? Any against? Thank you. That's carried. Okay, team. We are now going to move into our supplementary agenda, which is the substantive item for today. So I'll just give everyone a moment to find that in front of them. Okay, well, arguably, team, this is the main item before us here today. Over the past 3 months, as all of you well know, our council's held public workshops. We have listened to community and mana whenua. We've tested options, and we have worked closely with our regional partners. We've deliberately conducted much of that work in public because, given the significance of the change that is being considered, our community deserves to see not only the decisions we make, but how we reached them. And that process has now brought us to today. Today, we're not deciding to create a new council. I want to be clear on that. That's not the decision before us. What we are deciding is whether Hastings should continue joining Napier and Central Hawke's Bay in submitting the outline proposal in the paper before you to government, and continue as an active partner in how we reimagine how local government could work here in Taumatua Maui, Hawke's Bay. The alternative before us is to step away from the Head Start and to leave more of the work to our neighbouring councils and the government's backstop process. I want to make it clear that today is a binary decision. It is go forward with the outline proposal with our partners or don't. There is no amendments in the middle ground because this is not one council doing this mahi alone. This is many councils coming together, and we've had ample opportunity to traverse the issues and reach negotiation positions. So the proposal before us as well, I want to acknowledge, is not Hastings' perfect model, but nor is it Napier's perfect model or CHB's perfect model. It reflects a point at which the 3 councils have found enough common ground to keep moving forward together. And at its heart, this proposal is, as you all know, for one unitary authority, bringing local and regional council responsibilities together in one regional governing body, led by one mayor elected across the new authority. It also recognises that fair representation, meaningful local decision-making and practical access to council services cannot be treated as an afterthought. They must be built into the design from the beginning. Some high-level commitments are contained in the proposal, but many of the most important questions remain to be worked through with our community Should we submit this proposal? And should Cabinet approve it in principle? For those watching from home remotely, that means today does not determine the final ward boundaries. Every local governance arrangement, the future rates, debt, assets, service levels, or where the council function will be based. Those matters require detailed analysis and further work with mana whenua, formal community consultation, and further decisions by this council and our neighbouring councils. All of those are the next steps. This is a decision about whether the proposal gives us a strong enough foundation to do that next work properly. So I'll now invite Bruce and his team to introduce the report and outline the officer advice, and elected members will then have an opportunity to ask questions.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think, given the significance of this paper and the work that's gone into it, we will take a little bit of time just to, I guess, step through some key points before we open it up for questions. Mr. Charteris is here, obviously, to answer a lot of those questions, having been deeply involved in the proposal. But effectively, if I could just, and I'll probably repeat some of what you've said, Your Worship, just to reiterate some of those points. This paper seeks approval to submit, obviously, a Head Start outline proposal jointly with Central Hawke's Bay District Council and Napier City Council. At its core, the proposal is for 3 territorial authorities to come together into a single unitary authority that would also take on the Hawke's Bay Regional Council's functions. At this, Wairoa is not part of this proposal following its decision not to continue through the Head Start, although arrangements for regional functions affecting Wairoa will need to be worked through in the future. The proposal itself is intentionally high level, given the timeframes that we've had, and its principal design parameters, as you know, have been around 1 unitary authority, a regional mayor elected at large, a governing body of around 12 to 16 members, obviously with final representation arrangements to be designed, provision for a second tier of local governance where it is meaningful and clearly defined and has a clearly defined role, locally based services, service access and retention and transfer of existing mana whenua relationship and treaty settlement arrangements. In regards to Hastings' specific interests, councillors, you'll also see that the matters discussed over our recent weeks of discussions, and most of the particular interests Hastings has sought to discuss are now embedded in the proposed high-level parameters. Key things amongst that include strong representation for the participating communities on the regional governing body, explicit recognition of rural and coastal communities, representation being based on more than population alone, a test that any second tier governance must genuinely add and not simply recreate today's structures, a commitment to maintaining existing mana whenua arrangements, further detailed work on rating, debt, assets, service levels, representation, transition, before final decisions are to be made, as you've mentioned, Your Worship. So from an officer's perspective and the work that's gone into this, the proposal assesses the model against the government's 5 Head Start criteria: support for new planning system, simpler governance, economies of scale, maintenance of local voice and deliverability. And at this stage, officers consider there is a credible case against each of those criteria. Before any final proposal comes back to council, there will need to be full community consultation, detailed financial modelling to confirm the benefits of the proposed model, development of an effective approach to Māori representation, confirmation of how treaty settlement redress and existing statutory arrangements will operate, and considerably more work on representation, local governance, rates, assets, debt, service levels, etc. If the participating councils agree and Cabinet gives in principle support, the nature of the program changes quite significantly. The work to date has largely been about identifying a preferred direction and demonstrating that there is a credible proposition. The next phase is detailed design and transition planning. That will be a substantial program running across all three councils and involving governance, finance, legal, workforce, technology, assets, service delivery, mana whenua relationships, communications and community engagement. Importantly, progressing today does not hand control of that process away. The proposed program contains a series of council gateways between now and March 2027. We're confirming the scope and design parameters, considering preferred options for public engagement, reviewing engagement outcomes, and ultimately deciding whether Hastings supports a final proposal at all. We will also report back shortly on the governance arrangements for that detailed design program so elected members have clear oversight of that work. So the officer advice is not that every question has been answered. Plainly, it has not. The advice is that the proposal now contains enough agreement on the fundamental parameters, including the matters important to Hastings, to justify moving into detailed design. If Council agrees today, Your Worship, the next task is to test those parameters rigorously, engage properly with our communities in mana whenua, understand the financial and operational implications, and give elected members the information they will need to make a much more consequential decision next year. So on that, is there anything else, Mr. Charteris?
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. Just a couple of points, and thank you for that detailed summary, Bruce. In the version of the outline proposal that you have, I just want to outline that there are a couple of changes weren't able to get into that final document, but will be made or have already been made. So we have updated over the weekend the governance cost comparison numbers. So you'll recall that it included Wairoa initially. So we've removed Wairoa, and because of the work that we've been doing with you over the last couple of weeks, we now have more detail on, local boards and things. So our base case essentially is one local board to account for CHB wishes. So essentially that reduces that status quo cost of our governance from $16.3 million down to $13.8 million, and every option lands in quite a narrow band from 4.8 million to 6.7 million against that 3.8 million. So the reduction is between 7.1 million and 9 million, whichever option is chosen, and depending on how many boards. So that's will be in an update.
I just want to double check, is everyone following with that? Yeah, no questions on that particular. Councillor Lorcan.
Yes, thank you.
Just standing, sorry, thanks.
Thank you. Could you repeat those numbers, please, Gus?
Absolutely. So every option, so you recall the options were that option A, which was that one level council with no boards, through to the two-tier council, are those options B through to option D, and we discounted that option E. So depending on those options, every option lands in a narrow band between $4.8 million to $6.7 million against the $3.8 million of governance cost estimated today. So that reduction is between 7.1 million and 9 million, depending on which option is chosen and depending on how many local boards you have. Happy to circulate that information separately for people.
I think we'll do that. Thank you, Mr. Charteris.
And there's been a small change to the financial analysis in the annex, just to properly account for the HDC figures. There was differences of years, so just to let you know that an update on that will be forthcoming as well.
Team, as we've often talked about through this process, we are working in incredibly compressed timeframes, and I know that even given the events over the weekend, our staff were working on this. So every effort has been made to bring us information as soon as it comes to light. So thank you, Mr. Charteris, and we will get that emailed through. Okay, team, we're going to open up for questions first. I'll come first to Councillor Watkins.
Thank you, Worship. Could I just refer you to the executive summary on page 7, 1.4, and it states, the proposal is also clear that progression to a final proposal is conditional on further community consultation and regulatory relief. Over the page in the recommendations, I could not find any reference to regulatory relief. Could I just have a comment on that, please?
So, while the officers find their place, the assurance I'd like to give you, Councillor Watkins, is the recommendations do talk about putting forward the proposal as attached to the paper, and that very clearly outlines the relief and financial support being sought from government. So while we might have not comprehensively broken it down in the recommendations, by submitting the outline proposal, we are very clearly putting forward those relief requirements.
Okay, happy with
Is that a satisfactory answer?
Yep, fine.
Thank you. But you highlight a very important part of this process, which is we need government to support us in this if they would like to see this move ahead within Hawke's Bay. Deputy Mayor Fowler.
Yep. Thank you, Worship, and through you, I note in some discussions we had that there was a desire for 16 to 20 members on a new Tier 1 council. Can there be some explanation or question as to why we've settled on 12 to 16?
Yes.
Through you, Your Worship, please.
Thank you, and you're right. At our last workshop, we did talk about a preference from HDC being up to 20. As you all know, we are in a negotiation with our other partners, and our two other partners did not support that. Given that was the majority view, we have had to say the negotiated position is up to 16 then.
Yep. Thank you, Worship. And last question, if possible. I note that Tier 2, we are not, in effect, trying to design a system today, Your Worship.
No.
We have left the door open with Tier 2 for community, local boards, all other things. So just clarification, we are not putting forth our opinions on designing today. Thank you, Worship.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll come now to Councillor Milmine.
Thank you. Through you, Worship. I know that there's a substantial amount of work to come with the transition of this. So I would just like to know that we are planning some extra resource or something to support our team through that.
I might just ask if you are in a position to speak briefly to that.
Yeah, through you, Worship. So, yes, we will. We need, whatever resources that we need. This is obviously an extraordinary piece of work that's going to be on top of everything else that council has on its plate, including budgets and long-term plans and delivery of services and BAU and RM reform and all sorts that are coming at council. So this piece of work cannot be done with the resources that we have in-house as it stands at the moment. And also, this is Mr. Charteris has been part of a team across the number of the councils that are involved. So it's not all on Hastings alone, but we will be needing to look at what resources we need to do to support this, because you're right. The next phase from here, this has been a big piece of work, as you can tell from the papers, but to get it from here to a more detailed proposal by March next year will take a lot of effort and not by just the people that we have on deck.
Thank you. I just really feel that's very important, so I'm pleased to hear that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. And it is a big reason why we are, in our proposal, insisting on support from government. None of the councils involved have this budgeted. This was not a work stream that we saw coming, and it feels inconsistent for our communities to deal with the full financial burden of what is ahead of us. So it is a very big part of the proposal. Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Worship. Just keen to understand HBRC assets. Will they be absorbed into that unitary organisation?
Through you, Chair, yes, is the short answer, and so that will be part of the detailed design to think about those elements as well.
Councillors, I know we have traversed this in great detail over many, many sessions. So I will not be shocked if there's not further questions, because we've certainly spent a great deal of time on this and with our neighbours. But are there any other questions? In which case, I will now move into deliberations. Deputy Mayor Fowler.
Yeah. Thank you, Worship. I support all the recommendations. I think this is some of the most thorough work I've actually seen in my working life under pressure, that has traversed every nook and cranny, and it is just the beginning. That the recommendations do not attempt to solve or create. They just invite to engage in the Head Start process. There is community consultation to come. There is work beyond this, financial modelling, and community, as I said, community consultation, and working out effective Māori representation as well as part of that. This is a foundation to do the next lot of work, and so I'm happy to move the recommendations if you're happy to accept that now, Your Worship.
Thank you for setting a direction, Deputy Mayor. I acknowledge Councillor Teo Skipworth, you look like you were about to turn on your light before I go to the others. Okay. I will now come to Councillor Nixon.
Thank you, Worship. This decision has effectively been inflicted on us by government. This is not something that we necessarily walked into ourselves. But it's clear, both recently and in history, that our community does actually support a more unified regional council organisation. We had a lot of submissions that indicated, but I've found in private conversations in the community, the support has been overwhelming, and I'm talking going back, many years, to the last referendum we had, I think about 7 or 8 years ago, where Hastings actually voted in favour of a unified council, but we weren't successful because not everybody in the wider community agreed with us. So I think that while we've endorsed it under pressure, the logic is still there. And for that reason, I'm more than happy to second Councillor Fowler's motion, because I think it is utterly logical that we do this. I'm just unhappy with some of the force that was put on us to come to this point, but not in what we've actually done.
Thank you, Councillor Nixon. I'll come now to Councillor Milne.
Thank you, through Your Worship. I too support this motion. And I'd just like us to take a moment to reflect on the 90 days ago when this was put upon us, how we thought that this seemed unachievable. And now the considerable amount of work that has gone into this from across councils, our neighbouring councils working collaboratively. You know, I don't think we could have done much better to get it to anything better at this point. So thank you. I'd also like to say from a rural perspective that I think that I feel confident that the foundation is setting us up to have those voices and perspectives heard, and that means a lot to me. So I really just a big thank you to everyone involved, and I think we could all be really proud of where we've come to, even no matter where it goes from here. So well done, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Milne, and thank you for your strong advocacy for the rural community, you and Councillor Nolastic during this process. I'll come now to Councillor Teo Skipworth.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too support the recommendation. I think being forced into something was a bit of a struggle because we were often told localism was the key to successful local government. So hoping once this proposal is ahead of us or behind us, whatever way you want to take it, that localism does thrive. I also would like to thank the way council officers and fellow councils engaged with mana whenua. We have specific rights under Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and I feel like they've been upheld. So just want to thank you all. In the extreme pressure of the time frame as well as our unfortunate loss, thank you to all the staff for pulling together and taking care of one another during this process. Kia ora.
Councillor Montepero Hendry.
Thank you, through you.
Yeah, so my only reservation or thought at this point is that in all the beauty in the communities that I'm blessed to see, I don't want to underestimate how many kaupapas there are across the district, and I'd hate to have too few councillors, meaning that they are never at home with their loved ones or our communities let down with our lack of attendance. So I reserve committing to that number of elected members at that stage. I'm super stoked and thank you that our 22 coastal communities are listed in there alongside our rural and urban. So with that, I do support the Head Start process so that we can somewhat control what's being forced upon us. Noting, and most times in life, I find we're stronger together. Like our native trees planted together, we shield each other from the strong winds and the heavy rain. Our roots connect underground so that we can share food and water. The canopy creates shade while growing to capture the sunlight to create sturdy trunks. With this thought process, I think we will stand tall. So that's a moaki tonua too, forever and a day. I think we have to do it together. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Montepere Henry, and I also acknowledge your staunch advocacy for our coastal communities alongside your colleague, Councillor Corbyn, who I will now come to.
Thank you, Worship. This is a really valuable document, which I'm going to keep for a long time. So thank you for all the work that's gone into that. I support the recommendation. It's going to address the fragmentation in the region. Our communities cross current boundaries. They're not in one territorial authority or another. It's going to do away with duplication of regulation and division of responsibility and action. I just see it as enhancing the identity and growth of Hawke's Bay.
Thank you, Councillor Corbyn. Do we have any other debate? I will come to Councillor Ratcliffe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Like everyone, I have reservations and concerns about what lies ahead. Like everyone, I thank the staff for all of the hard work that's gone into preparing this. I share Councillor Monteperto's concerns around the guarantees that we are almost making in this document to reduce the total number of elected members. From day one, that has been my main concern, that power is increasingly concentrated in an ever-diminishing number of hands. Doing the maths on it, a council of 14 supported by 6 local boards of 6 people each would give us the exact same number.
Point of order, Your
elected
Worship. Are we debating mechanics of how we operating systems?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I will take what Councillor Ratcliffe says as his view rather than debating today. The mechanics, I won't open up for debate on how that looks because that's the next step in the process. You may continue, Councillor Ratcliffe.
Thank you. To respond to Councillor Fowler's point.
Please don't, Councillor, I don't want crosstalk at the table, so just continue with what you're saying, please.
Okay. I'm reassured by Councillor Te Skipwith's satisfaction that mana whenua have been consulted as well as could possibly have been done given the time frame. And yes, I will be supporting the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ratcliffe. Is there any other debate? Before I come back to the mover for the right of reply, I'd like to take a moment to share my view. I believe this is a significant and historic moment for Heretaunga and for Te Matua Māui. 150 years we have been Heretaunga. And we are now looking at coming together as Te Matua Māui. That is significant. And it's come from our people. They have told us what they want. And I think that's the other meaningful thing. While consultation was not a requirement in this process as laid out by government, we did what we knew was right. and we went out and we engaged. We couldn't do the full level of consultation that we would normally like, which is why it is a requirement in this proposal we submit that we have that opportunity as the next step. But we have spoken to our people, and they have been very clear. They have helped shape the work we have done so far. And when I say our people, I don't just mean Heretaunga. I mean all people across Te Matua Māori. The message we had come back clear was one voice where it makes sense and local voice where it matters. And I believe we have laid the groundwork to enable that and honour that. As Councillor Corbyn's already said, our community lives beyond our council boundaries drawn on a map. They cross them every day for work, for play, for sports, for our economy. It's important we acknowledge that. It's also important that we acknowledge that our roads and our rivers and our natural hazards don't honour those boundaries either, which is why I firmly believe that coming together is the best way forward for everyone. But I also have been steadfast through this process, and I have been so proud of this table to see it too. There has not just been thinking about what is right for Heretaunga. There has been thinking about what is right for all of our region. That has been the message that I've seen come through time and time again. No one at this table has been precious or tried to patch protect, and I really want to acknowledge and honour that. Thank you. As we've discussed, the proposal that we are looking to submit reflects that common ground that we've reached with our neighbours. And as I said earlier, it's not the perfect model by anyone's standards, individual standards, but I think it's the perfect model when you bring all those voices together. I really do. And I think these next steps as we walk forward with our community and hear from them further about what they want will make sure that we are creating something we can be proud of, handing to the next generation. Because that's what we're doing at the moment. We are the council that represents Heretaunga that gets to help model what the next generation inherits. That's significant. That's historic. And I appreciate the way you've all approached that. I think the final point that I want to make is a pretty simple one, which is through these negotiations, we have been really clear, and we've touched on it already, that government must be a practical partner in what comes next. If they want us to undertake this change, then we will require regulatory relief, where existing planning and representation work would otherwise be duplicated, along with specialist transition support and protection from the avoidable funding shocks for our community. We are clear that our communities should not be asked to pay twice for processes under the current system when it's going to be replaced with something new. You know here that I am thinking specifically around representation reviews and LTPs. We need that regulatory relief. Our community should not pay twice. Walking away at this point, as we all know, doesn't stop change. Change is coming. All it would do would be to reduce our ability to advocate with our people's voice as we move forward. This proposal keeps the pen in the hand of everyone in Hawke's Bay. And I want to take a moment to acknowledge our neighbours too. It wasn't so long ago that I sat with the mayors of CHB and Napier and along with their CEs. And I was so heartened by how fast we found common ground and actually how fast everyone thought beyond the boundaries that we have. I think that speaks highly of the people that our community have elected across our region, and it gives me great hope for what comes next. I am wholeheartedly supportive of the recommendations. Deputy Mayor Fowler.
Yep. Thank you, and through your worship, it is indeed historic. And if I'll just indulge me for a quick history lesson, since it's in 1854, Hawke's Bay was part of the Wellington province, and we tended to get a little bit upset here because a a lot of our taxes coming through the Napier Port, Hastings didn't exist then, were being taken to build Wellington roads. So if you're listening, Mayor Andrew Little, we want some of our puha back. So we got a bit upset about that. So in 1854, the people of Hawke's Bay, the founding fathers, together created the province of Hawke's Bay. The province system was abandoned in 1876 for county rule. By that time, Hastings was only 3 years old, and it was owned mostly by Napier shopkeepers, who owned most of Hastings. So the county system existed, as most of us will know, till 1989, when that was largely disestablished. Mostly, there were a plethora of boards, of catchment boards, of boards for doing that. If we think life's difficult now, you had to go to quite a number of different people, organisations to get a decision. So that was abandoned. So we have now the Hastings District Council. So there have been various attempts to amalgamate, all have been unsuccessful. I believe truly this is the time. And for the reasons the Mayor has spoken, I'm not going to go back on. And really, in terms of what James Wattie, and I might have said this before, the founder of Wattie's, said when Hawke's Bay was doing its endless scrapping, in reference to the Hawke's Bay rugby team, I'm a Hawke's Bay guy. So together, I think we can say we are now heading towards being Hawke's Bay guys and girls. And also add on too, a big difference in today's society is Māori representation, which did never existed or was ignored or deemed to be irrelevant, which is now relevant in our society, and may that continue. That's all, Worship.
Oh, thank you, Deputy Mayor. The right person to have moved this historic moment to give us the history lesson as well. Team, we have recommendations outlined in the supplementary agenda on pages 8 and 9. They are what has been moved and seconded. I will put those recommendations. All those in favour? Aye. Any against? Thank you. That is carried unanimously by Heretaunga Hastings. Before we move to the next item, a huge congratulations to the team that have put this together. Mr. Tardos, I want to recognise the many hours that have been put into this. Just on Friday, when I was meeting with our Chief Executive, Nigel Bickle, and congratulating him on the huge amount of work that's been done, he specifically redirected that praise to Gus. So I do want to acknowledge that. Thank you. I also acknowledge team and somewhat apologise. I realise this means you maybe have a day off and then back into it with great steam. So we are here backing you, and as to Councillor Milmine's point, we will certainly be looking for the regional resource that is required to enable this work. Okay, team, we will now move into item 6, which is back in our main agenda. So I'll give everyone a moment to pull that up. So this is an amendment to the 2026-27 rates resolution. Fear not, what the team have found is a slight typo that means we need to adopt a reduction, not an increase. That's good news. So I'll hand over to the team.
Thank you, Worship. So I'll take the report as read. It was, yes, after we went through all the deliberations and the resolution, when I came to setting the rate, I found one that was slightly higher in the resolution, but it wasn't in the actual annual plan document itself. We have struck the rate with the lower rate, and that has gone out in the rates invoices, so there's no other amendments we need to make. This is administrative to be able to have the right rate set.
Okay, team, it's pretty straightforward. Are there any questions? Councillor Teo Skipworth.
Not sure if I should declare a conflict being paki paki, your worship.
No, that's okay, councillor. Are there any questions, or would someone like to set the direction? Councillor Ratcliffe had his light on.
Happy to move.
Thank you. I'll take second to Councillor Watkins. If there's no other comments, questions or debate, I'll put those recommendations as outlined on page 8. All those in favour? Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Thank you, team. Right, we will now move on to item 7, which is appointments to the Hastings District Council Tangata Whenua Wastewater Joint Committee. And we have Mr. Thu at the top table.
Through your worship, councillors, today this is a relatively simple paper for you to work through. For those who haven't been around, the Tangata Whenua Joint Wastewater Committee has actually been quite an award-winning committee for this council and has good credibility both in this country and in international conferences with First Nations and other parts of the world. It was established after an environmental court proceeding, so there was some heat that created the bonding which behind this committee. The proceedings at that time involved the Royal Hapia Marae, the New Zealand Māori Council and representatives from the Heretatonga, Takatumu and Ahuriri executives as they existed in the time. As through that court proceedings, one of the conditions that was negotiated between parties was condition 29, which if I may, I will read directly from.
Thank you.
In accordance with the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi, especially those of partnership and consultation, and in recognising the role of tangata whenua as kaitiaki, the consent holder shall establish and retain as a committee of Hastings District Council under Clause 31 of Schedule 7, Local Government Act 2002, a council committee, half of the members of which shall be tangata whenua representatives, and the function of which shall include, and then a long list of functions. What this paper today is about the appointments to those half seats. In your already adopted committee structure, you have the 5 councillors from around this table, and there are 5 tangata whenua members. In this term's conditions, we've also named those as 3 as Tamati Paukai Whenua and 2 from Ahuriri. In the past, those representatives have come in different forms as we've worked through the Māori executive structures, the Tai Whenua model, and then more recently through the PSGs. This paper today, really, the team have gone through out to the PSGs. The PSGs have provided their nominations. This paper today is an administrative matter for you to support or endorse or not those recommendations from the committee. Happy to take questions, Your Worship.
Thank you. I'll come first to Councillor Daniel.
Thank you to Your Worship. Just I want to note that 1.15, the name is different to the name on the recommendations, Daniel and David.
Thank you.
Just a little typo error. And I'm happy to move when required.
We will take you as the mover, but can you just confirm for us which one is correct? Daniel, thank you. Appreciate that. We will make that amendment within the recommendations and we'll take you as the mover. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Jessup. Okay, team, the substantive motion is on the table as outlined in page 11 with that small amendment. Do we have any further questions or debate? Councillor Gibson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I can't support this co-governance model, and so I will be voting against this without elaborating. I think that will do. I think you know my stance.
So I will just remind you, Councillor, that not supporting it would be in breach of the consent if that was to pass. Are you still happy to take your stance? It would mean HDC is in breach of a consent.
I just can't support unelected representation on committees.
Okay, thank you. Right, is there any other questions or debate? No, in which case I'll put the recommendations as outlined on page 11. All those in favour? Any against? Noted. Thank you, Councillor Gibson. That is carried. Okay, team, so we'll move now on to item 8, which is the proposed temporary road closure for Clifton Road. Thank you, Bruce, for joining us. And I'll hand straight to you.
Thank you, Mayor and councillors. I think the report itself is relatively self-explanatory. Probably the key element around it is in the executive summary in 1.3, and it's a temporary road closure that's effectively to enable construction and decommissioning of the site itself alone. So that's the key premise of the report, is basically primarily for primary public safety while those works are actually undertaken, but happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillors, do we have any questions? In which case we'll move to deliberations. Would someone like to set the scene or make a comment? I'll come now to Councillor Monteperi Hendry. Oh.
Thank you. Yeah,
okay, I'll come to Councillor Corbyn.
Sorry, Your Worship.
Thank you, Worship. I'm very happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you.
As Bruce has said, it's a temporary measure. It's for worksite safety, to protect assets and prevent vandalism. Access to the beach isn't shut off, there's pedestrian access, and there will be discussion with the community about what happens for that area in the future. I'm very happy to recommend.
Thank you, Councillor Corbyn, and it's heartening you being the ward councillor moving that. And I'll come to the other ward councillor, Councillor Monteperi Hendry.
Thank you, through Your Worship. I'm happy to second, and also just wanted to note that the key stakeholders and locals are definitely in support of this. It does protect from vandalism, but also it's protecting Te Tao out there, so it's hugely important, and the officers are working with and listening to the community to try and do what's right for them. So
thank you. I've become somewhat distracted because I see a familiar face out the doors behind you. Councillor Jessup, could you please invite the person that I've noticed to come in? If she's still there. Sorry, we're just pausing proceedings for one moment. Councillors, I welcome to the chamber former Mayor Sandra Hazelhurst. Sandra, you're not allowed to sit at the back, you have to come up here for a moment. I acknowledge you and invite you to sit at a vacant seat at this table. It feels very appropriate today to have you here if you're happy to do so. I have sprung this on you. We have left the top table empty today in honour of our dear Chief Executive, and actually I'm grateful for your presence in chamber today. Okay, team, so we have a mover and a seconder. Do we have any other comments or debate? No, in which case I'm going to put the recommendations as outlined on page 14. All those in favour? Any against? Thank you, that's carried. And if you will bear with us, Sandra, we only have 2 short items, and then it would be lovely to share a cup of tea with you. Okay, so we'll now move to item 9, which is the appointment of the Hearings Commissioners to consider the private plan change 10, the Hawke's Bay Racecourse. A very important piece of work for our community and unlocking fabulous Flaxmere. Just wondering if the reporting officers are in the room at the moment. If not, we might hold this one over. Okay, we'll move on, elected members. We'll move on to the item 10, proposed amendments to the schedule of meetings. And actually, I'll invite Ms. Stettner to come forward. Thank you, Ms. Stettner. Are there any questions, team? I've made Ms. Stettner come up, but I'm going to I might give her an opportunity not to say anything if there's no questions. I'm very happy to move the amendments from the amended schedule from the chair, seconded by Councillor Watkins. Are there any questions or debate? No, in which case I'll put those recommendations as outlined on page 26. Oh, sorry, Councillor
Sorry.
Monteperi-Henry.
Thank you, through your worship. I just had one question with D. Is it necessary to hand over the delegation to the hearings panel of the Ramsey Crescent Reserve?
So we've just moved on to item 10 because the reporting officers aren't in the room.
Sorry,
at the moment.
thank
That's
you.
okay. I did it very quickly. So we're just looking at an amendment to the meeting schedule. I won't make Louise answer that one. So in which case I'll put the recommendations as outlined on page 26. All those in favour? Aye. Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Okay team, we are running much further ahead of schedule than we were anticipating, so I'm actually going to call a cup of tea now. So we'll take 15 minutes please, and then we'll reconvene once the officers have had a chance to get into chamber for the next item. Thank you. Okay, team, we're going to reconvene now. So if everyone can please take their seats. So we will be going back to item 9, which is on page 21, and I'd like to invite the team forward. Welcome, Anna. So as mentioned before, this is the appointment of the Hearings Commissioners to consider the private plan change number 10, which is the Hawke's Bay Racecourse relocation and applications for an easement over the Flaxmere Avenue Around Off Reserve and divestment of Ramsey Crescent Reserve. I'll hand over.
Kia ora koutou, good morning, councillors. Apologies for being late. Yes, so this report seeks a decision on the Independent Hearings Panel. The recommendation also is for the reserves application and the private plan change application to be heard by the panel together, so that that all the information is considered at the same time. The recommendation discusses that, or states that the Independent Hearings Panel would make a recommendation on the reserves application back to Council, because that decision lies with Council. And in terms of the plan change application, it would consider and decide on that application, but that would be contingent again on the Council's decision on the reserves applications. So yeah, happy to take any questions.
All right, team, opening up for questions. No, sounds like you have answered the one question that was around the table. So I will now, I'll now open up for direction setting. Would anyone like to set our direction? Thank you, Councillor Watkins. Thank you for moving the recommendations as outlined on page 23. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Corbyn. Okay, team, we have a substantive motion on the table. Is there any debate? No, in which, Councillor Tara Skipworth, you're tricking me.
Sorry, Worship. I just want to congratulate the officers on selecting a really fine committee for that hearing. Especially, we've got some of the most experienced commissioners in there, which means we'll have some good conversations about the plan change. Thank you.
Absolutely agree, Councillor. I've had the great privilege of sitting on hearings panels in my former capacity as a commissioner with a number of these commissioners, and they are excellent. And actually, those of you who are undertaking commissioner training at the moment or have just completed your certification, I wholeheartedly recommend taking the opportunity, if it presents itself, to sit in and listen to these commissioners. A great deal of learning happens in that process. Okay, if there's no further debate, I'll put the recommendations as outlined on page 23. All those in favour? Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Okay, team, we'll now move on to the recommendation to exclude the public, which is on page 27. And I will come to Mr. Cameron to please explain that to us.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Order, please, team.
There's one matter recommended to be considered in committee today. The item contains commercially sensitive information, both council and external organisations. Council may also well enter into a period of negotiations related to this matter, subject to council decisions. For those reasons, it's recommended that that matter is considered in public exclusion this time.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No, in which case I'm happy to move from the chair that we move into public excluded. Can I have a seconder, please? I will take Councillor Lorcan, thank you. If there's no debate, I will put those recommendations as outlined on page 27. All those in favour? Any against? Thank you, that's carried. Before we move into public excluded, I'd like to thank the community for joining us. Today has been a very important meeting for a number of reasons, and I'd just like to take a moment to acknowledge that in the days, weeks, months and years ahead, there will be many firsts, and we have just traversed what may arguably be for this organisation anyway, the most challenging first. And thank you for doing it with great dignity, team. I think we've done our Chief Executive, Nigel Bickle, very proud with the team he's assembled and how he has run this organisation. Thank you.